Hi guys, I got myself a brand new tiny attacher this week. Well, I ordered it a couple weeks ago, but it finally arrived, and I'm really excited to have a new one because my old one, as you guys know, I haven't been using it lately. It does technically work. Of course, when I tried to demonstrate to show you guys how it doesn't work, it worked. But it basically, it works as long as I'm trying to prove a point that it doesn't work, but as soon as I'm just assuming that it works and I grab for it and use it, it doesn't work. So often that it's really frustrating to use it, so I stopped using it. It has been broken for a good long time, and I will show you how it broke and where it broke so that you can be on the lookout for this problem if you have a tiny attacher. But I love the tiny attacher so much that I'm willing to buy it, even though I know that it has this flaw to it, and it's a really popular stapler, and I'm sure that lots of people have it with no problems at all, and I'm hoping that that will be the case with my new one. And I will, again, I'll speak a little bit to what went wrong with it and how I hope to make sure that that doesn't go wrong this time. So as I prepared to make this video showing you the tiny attacher and where it broke and how I have a new one, it occurred to me I have a whole lot of staplers, so I thought I would share with you guys some of the differences between the different staplers that I have in my collection. There are more staplers out there, but I just don't have any other than these ones, which are plenty. So I have more than all of my stapling needs covered here on this table. Pardon me. So I am going to show you guys, first of all, these are all of the samples of staples from the staplers that I have in order. So this is a regular standard stapler staple right there. So that's just an office stapler from Office Depot. This one is a mini stapler. This one is from Stampin' Up, and it's a standard size. It's called mini. It's number 10 is the size. If you're buying refills, it says number 10 right there. And so this is the number 10 staple, and it is smaller than a standard staple, but you'll notice that it's bigger than the next two. So the next two are these really tiny staplers. So this is the American Crafts version of the tiny attacher. It has this tiny staple right there, and the tiny attacher has the dimensions of it, so I'll tell you what the dimensions are. And I have this one because I didn't want to have to, I often use this one, which is this next one. Actually, hang on, these are in the wrong order. So this first one is from my tiny attacher, this first tiny one. And then the next tiny one that's gold is from my gold stapler, which is an American Crafts stapler. I think this is from the DIY shop line of American Crafts. And you can get it in a couple of different colors, like a hot pink. I think it came in a teal or something, and it might have come in black as well, but I got it in gold, and the reason I got it in gold was so that I could keep it loaded with gold staples so that I wouldn't have to change my tiny attacher every time I wanted gold staples, because mine is broken and I have trouble reloading it, which I'll show you that in a little while. Then these next three all come from the We Are Memory Keepers staple board. So this is the small. This next one right here is the small. So it comes from this little tiny stapler from the We Are Memory Keepers staple board. And then this one is the medium, which is really just a standard staple. So this one is the same as that. It's just I put pink ones in my medium because I like pink. And then this one is the large stapler from the staple board. So that comes from this one. I do have a video that demonstrates how to use the staple board, so I will link that in the information section below. I'm not going to give a detailed review of the staple board and how it's used, but I'll refer to it throughout this video, so I thought I'd take it out so that you could see all of the different options together. And I really do like these, although I don't use them very often. I think it's more just that I forget that I have it. This stapler, I do have, as I mentioned, I have a video about it. What I will say about the We Are Memory Keepers staple board is that it definitely works as as it's supposed to work and as advertised, but it doesn't quite work very well with my personal workflow, and so I don't have anything bad to say about it other than it just doesn't work for me. So that's why you guys don't see me reaching for this. If I have to staple in the center of a page, I will reach for it, but it's not my standard stapler that I use all the time, unless if I wanted that that large staple right here, then I might reach for it. And I mean, since this one is preloaded with pink, I guess if I wanted a pink staple, I would probably reach for that one instead of this one in a standard size. But for the mini one, I would probably reach for my Stampin' Up stapler most of the time, because it's just so easy to use a handheld stapler. And you can see exactly where it's going to staple, because there's like an uninterrupted line of vision. Like you can actually see where it's going to, I will demonstrate. Like as you press in, you can see that that is exactly where the staple will be. Whereas with this one, because you have a piece of paper sandwiched in there, you can't, so the way that you use it, and again, I give a much more clear demonstration on my video dedicated to this stapler, but because it's sort of, because this piece of plastic here kind of masks what's underneath, you can't really see. If this was clear, it would be much more helpful. Like this horseshoe shape here is clear, and that is helpful, but I wish that the whole thing was clear so you could see exactly where this is going to staple. As you can see, you can really just see it. You can see below where it's going to staple, but you can't really see above. So if I were trying to make my staple fit someplace relative to something else that's above it, I would have to just guesstimate. So that is one of the reasons I don't really reach for this one as often. But it is well made and seems to work without fail, so that is good. On the back of the packaging of the tiny attacher, it tells you these sizes of the staples. So a standard staple is 0.5 of an inch, so that's this one right here, and it's 12.7 millimeters. And then the mini staple, that's this one and this one, so the Stampin' Up Mini Stapler and the small on the We Are Memory Keepers Mini Stapler, this one and this one, is 0.375 inches or 9.525 millimeters. And then the tiny attacher stapler staples 0.25 of an inch, so it is a half of a standard staple, whereas the mini one is a little bit more than half. And again, this one and the tiny attacher and the American Crafts small stapler are the same size. Their staples are interchangeable, so you can use the same tiny attacher staples in this, and you can use these American Crafts staples in this interchangeably with no problem. You can also use these Stampin' Up Mini Staples. Come in a package like this. I think you get 2 of these in when you buy a package of them at Stampin' Up. You can use these interchangeably in this and in the We Are Memory Keepers staple board. I seem to recall when I bought my first tiny attacher that it came with a full package of staples, and now they only include these 2 little strips of staples. That's a bit of a bummer. I'll get those out later. So I will show you where my tiny attacher broke. So this is my old one. It broke almost right away. What happened was there is a piece of plastic that runs from here into here, and it kind of basically makes this spring loaded so that it doesn't just move freely like this. And what happened, I'll just show you the way it's supposed to look. So it's clear on this attacher, but it was black on my original one. So that's how it's supposed to go, from this hole here into that hole in the red piece right there. And then this red thing is what holds your staples in place. So your staples go here. Hopefully that makes some sense to you guys. But the thing is that this is not very elasticy, and so what happened was it got stretched out and it actually used to get in here. So when I'd close it up, what happened was it kind of like, what am I trying to say? It was too big because it got stretched out and it's not elastic, so it doesn't kind of immediately go back to its original size. The extra bit of plastic would get stuck in here, and then when you closed it, it would kind of like compromise the integrity of the plastic. And as you can see, the plastic ended up getting shredded. That was from the friction from this metal piece here to this metal piece here, that it would just keep on. Every time I changed my staples, this wouldn't stay put, and it would just, anyhow, for a long time, it was just hard to open, and then eventually the plastic piece just snapped. And you can still use it. So this piece here is still spring-loaded. So as you see, I have staples in there, and that's hard to demonstrate with such a tiny little bit of staples. I'll grab a bigger one. These were sent to me from Tracy, who watches my YouTube channel, so thank you to Tracy for that. So what you do, you can still use it if this happens, and if it happens when your tiny attacher is new, you can probably write them or email them, and they'll probably send you a new stapler or a new piece of plastic, but I wasn't organized enough to do that, and then I had it so long broken that it just didn't make sense for me to contact them anymore. So now you can still use it, but as I mentioned, it's not as reliable. So what I usually find, of course it's not doing it now, but what I usually find is that it'll staple once, but then if I try to staple twice, the second one almost never works. Although, of course it works when I'm doing a YouTube video, but trust me, I think if you've followed my process videos, you've probably seen that happen to me, where I've tried stapling twice and I have to open it up and fiddle with the thing. So anyhow, I'm going to retire this one because it is very frustrating to use. So I'm going to put it over here so that I don't get it mixed up with my new one. So my new one, when I change the staples, I'm going to be very careful that I don't stretch this piece of plastic and allow it to get distorted. It doesn't feel any stretchier than the black one did. So what I'm going to do is when I open it like this, instead of just like pulling it using the plastic to pull that red thing open, I'm going to use my fingernail to pull the plastic, to pull the red thing open. That way I'm not putting too much pressure on this strap, because I want my this tiny attacher to last a good long time because I love it so much. They're not too expensive, and I think they're $15. The first one I bought was, you know, 8 or 9 years ago, so I feel like for $15 I got my use out of it, and now I'm ready to invest in a new one. So that's how you refill it. And just because I've had this negative experience, I am always going to use my thumbnail to pull down the red instead of using the force of this plastic thing to pull down the red piece. And then I'm hoping this one works for a good long time. What I love about this stapler is how nice it feels. Like, it really has nice smooth, it's a nice smooth stapling experience. I know that sounds kind of funny. It fits really nicely in your hand. This is nice, and it's kind of like a grippy black, it's a grippy plastic, and it's just very contoured and feels good. It's the right size for my hand, and it's just a very, very comfortable stapler to use. This one, which makes this exact same staples, so I'll just put some right here. Oh, I ran out of staples. No, I didn't. Hear how it is a little bit more crunchy when you use it? I'm out of staples now. That is just less pleasant. It's also like it's not rounded. You know what? These are first world problems. It's not a big deal, but if I had to choose a comfortable stapler, I would definitely choose the Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher over this one. But I do really love not having to reload gold staples. And this one works a little bit differently, so I will show you how. So I'm glad, basically what I'm saying is I'm glad to have this one. I think it's really cute looking. I like that it is gold. Yeah, so there's no staples in there. So I keep this one loaded with gold, as I mentioned. So these are the staples. You can get them from American Crafts and maybe some other places too, but they're made for this stapler, and you could also put tiny attacher staples in here too if you wanted to. They fit in there just fine. You just slide them in. Oh, you don't want to slide two in at once. You just slide them in right here, and they slide straight forward. And then when you put this thing back in, you just kind of line up that black thing with the slot that you just put the staples in. And then you use the spring on it to hook into the hole in it. And now, of course it doesn't work. The thing I want to work won't work, and the thing that I don't want to work works. So the other thing that I really don't like about this stapler is that there is no way to open it up to actually see the place where the staples are and the place where the stapling mechanism pushes things down. So if your staples, like I will demonstrate on this one, you know how sometimes at this part of the staples, one gets, especially when you're down to a few staples, one gets stuck in there and it's kind of twisted the wrong way, and then it won't staple. You just open this up and you dig that out with your fingernail or a little paper piercer or whatever, and then you're good to go. Well, the gold one doesn't open up like that. So if something gets stuck in there, it's really hard to get it out or to even know what's going on in there, right? So for example, right now there's one that's stuck in there, and I just have to kind of keep poking and hoping that it loosens and comes out. So, you know, that's not there. There we go. So it's out now, and I think, oops. So if it gets clogged like that, I mean, that's one annoying thing about this stapler. Not only is it not as comfortable to use, but it's a little bit trickier to fix problems with it. If that happens with you, what I would do is pull this thing out and do just what I just did, which is kind of shake it around, poke something inside, and there's like a little hole here that's big enough for you to stick something in, and just kind of keep poking and shaking, and it will eventually come out this end. And then you can reload it properly. So I was trying to demonstrate that tiny attacher staples work in this one, so let's slide that one down. And hopefully it will work this time. There we go. Tiny attacher staplers right there. So I am going to reload this with the gold staples because that's what I like to keep in it. So let's take these. And then I will show you something about the gold staples, and it's really true for any colored staples, which is this. There we go, working again, that's nice. Good when you're doing a video when things work as planned. So I will show you something about these gold or other colored staples, and that is that they're a little bit messy, and the reason they're messy is that they're just painted staples. And you can tell that by having a look at them, like these dark blue ones, for example. If you flip them over, they're silver on the other side. These have just been coated with dark blue, and the gold ones have just been coated with a gold or yellow paint. And so what that means is that especially where the staples bend, there's sometimes a little bit of extra paint kind of pops up, like cracks where the staples bend. So you can see in the holes, for example, there is a little bit of extra paint. And so sometimes you have to kind of like rub off that extra paint. And sometimes these staples will actually, the paint will rub right off of them. So that's not happening in this case, but the more I rub them, the less gold they look, right? So I think that the paint will eventually chip off, especially if you're going to have a lot of wear and tear. So I'm focusing on this one, for example, just to show you that this one that was quite yellow a few minutes ago, now it's looking not too different from the silver one beside it. And then this is the gold one that I haven't really been as rough on, and it's maintained its gold color. So that's just something to keep in mind about the colored staples. They are really nice, but they, you know, they're not perfect. So I will also demonstrate this stapler. So this is another handheld stapler. It's the Stampin' Up one, so it gives you mini staples instead of the tiny ones. And it's a crunchier stapler too, so it kind of, it's harsh. I don't know if you really have to kind of like do it to feel it. Whereas the tiny attacher, I hate to go on and on about something, but it's just really smooth. It's very enjoyable. And all of these are handheld staplers, which means that you hold them in your hand and staple like that, as opposed to this one, which can be handheld. This is just a regular Office Depot type of stapler, or you could put it on the table and go like that as well. So I have a whole video where I demonstrate the We Are Memory Keepers staple board, so check that one out if you're interested in this. But basically, it is for overcoming the reach problem that these ones have. So obviously, if I wanted to staple in the middle of this piece of paper here, I could only go as far as this staple's reach lets me go. So I could go there, but I can't go in the very center, and I could go there, but I can't go in the very center. If I didn't mind my staples to be lengthwise, I could get pretty close to the center, but not exactly center. And if I wanted them a certain way, I couldn't do that with this one. So this stapler allows me to go right in the middle. Let's switch to the small one. So when you switch, you do have to switch this little plate that curves the back side of your staples. So it's small, medium, and large. So I'm going to use the small one. And let's just place this right in the center. We'll put it right below these because we can't really staple right on them. And again, this is what I mean by you can't tell exactly where. You kind of have to eyeball it. So let me zoom in a little bit so that you can see this. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at this little S and the little staple impression there, and I'm trying to make that land exactly where I want this staple to go. So I think that's about right. Then you then you click this on. It's magnetized, so it sticks and holds your staple just perfectly, your stapler. And then you just go like that, and ta-da! I have the staple going the direction I want and exactly where I want it on the page. So that is the benefit of this staple board. I am going to show you how I get around the reach problem with my tiny attacher, which is why I have these two tools out that you might think are unrelated to stapling, but they actually are not. So let's just say I wanted to staple right here on this piece of paper. So what you do is you swing this outer arm up and over the tiny attacher, and then so it's as if you were about to change the staples, but we're not going to change the staples. Instead, we're going to hang on to the silver part that the staples are actually in and pull this black piece. This black piece does release, and it goes down this way. And now we put this arm back in place. And now I can use this as a kind of like a tabletop stapler. So I'm going to decide where I want my staple to go. I want it to go right between these two and parallel. I'll come down here and show you. And you do have to staple fairly gently on this. So, oops. And there we go. So you see right there, I stapled that one and then I stapled that one. And I'll do one more. Okay, so before I do one more, I'll show you what I do with the other side. So what you end up with is these little things poking out. And so I just take my We Are Memory Keepers. This is a brad tool. It's used for closing brads, but I actually bought it specifically to use with staples like this. And so what I do is I just kind of turn it like, I hold the staple up and I just kind of turn it in like that and turn it in like that. And I just use this tool to bend those little staple arms down. Okay, so from another angle, here we go. We've got our piece of foam, we've got our piece of paper. I have my tiny attacher in the kind of funky position, ready to go. And now this is where I want to press firmly enough that the staple's going to go in, but not so firm that I break the paper or rip the paper or bend it. So you might want to do some practicing before you try this on your very favorite layout. So as you can see, it goes in like that. There's what I have on the other side. And now I have my tool here, and I just hold the little pokey things upright with one fingernail, and then I kind of bend with the tool. Let me see how I'm doing that. Yeah. There. So now one of them is done. And then I'll hold that one down with my finger and bend this one just like that. There we go. And from the other side, it looks great. So I do recommend that you practice that a few times before you try it on a really good layout, but that is how you can use your tiny attacher to staple anywhere on the page. So if you've been thinking about adding a stapler to your scrapbooking supplies, I hope that you found this video helpful. Basically, I would strongly recommend the tiny attacher despite the problems that I've had with it. And I also really do enjoy this one. I think this one really makes a good secondary stapler, but it's not my favorite one to use as my main stapler just because of the fact that it's a little bit tricky if staples get stuck in it, and it's just not as pleasant of an experience as this ergonomically designed one. This one is great for stapling in the middle of pages, but it does have some workflow issues just for me. It might work better for your workflow, but I find that it interrupts my creative process a little bit to pull this out and use it. This one is a really nice one if you want the larger small staples, so the what's called the mini staples or the number 10 staples. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all have a really great scrappy week.